Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Go ahead and get started here momentarily. We probably have a couple more people jumping from other Zoom meetings or other in-person meetings. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. All right, so in interest of uh, respecting everybody's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if we have people that continue to join us, that's fine. We'll start with a couple intros anyways. So thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. The goal of today, as it says here, is taking the mystery out of the NRPA Awards process. So our hope here is that you leave by the end of this hour with some a bit more information about kind of behind the scenes of the NRPA Awards process. Maybe feel a little bit more empowered to submit an awesome submission or two. Uh, just in case you aren't aware, we're going to record this live here in January of 2026, but this will be available for a couple years in the future. So we might talk a little bit more generically about awards overall, but by all means, please ask questions specifically that you have, whether that's using the chat or coming off mute. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce myself really quick. I'm Michael Biedenstein. I am your Senior Manager of Membership here at NRPA. I have the honor of facilitating the awards process here at NRPA. That looks like a lot of behind the scenes work so that our National Awards and Scholarship Committee can do the wonderful work of reviewing and tweaking criteria and ultimately selecting the winners. So I wanted to, in particular, welcome Maxime Pierre, who is our awards committee chair. We also have Seve Ghosh, who is our chair-elect. We have several other committee members. I know Nathan Ford is here, along with a couple others. So thank you, awards committee, for being here. Maxime, would you want to come off mute and say hi?
Yes. First things first, I want to thank everyone for being able to join this call. I want to thank our committee members and obviously Michael, he does so much for NRPA and this committee specifically. And I'll keep it short. The importance of these awards when it comes to national recognition is amazing. And I don't want anyone who is interested in either going for any of the awards or for the scholarships and fellowship just to think about there's only one winner and they're the only person where matters to, because that's not the case. We get to see dozens and dozens of amazing submissions and applications where we're able to share what all of you all are doing across the country. And that goes obviously for some of the categories, there could be one winner, but there in any given year could be 5 different submissions or more that could win. And we discuss those things. We share those organizations, those individuals that are making their really incredible impact with our network. I myself in the past have had my staff reach out to some of the individuals who've made submissions and maybe didn't win, but they're doing really incredible stuff. And it's really a domino effect of a lot of what's submitted ends up being motivating and inspiring to us and to others. And the impact of it's tremendous. So we want everyone, of course, there's people who win, they're going to get that incredible recognition, but it's so many ideas and motivations and things that are spurred by everyone. And you guys are all really, truly get recognized in your own way. So I just want to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thanks, Maxime. Um, so the overall thought of the presentation today, or roadmap, if you will, is I'm going to run through nuts and bolts of the awards, right? Our different award categories, our different actual awards. Um, I'm also going to then look in particular to the committee to maybe touch on some submission tips. They're the ones that are literally reviewing these dozens of, it's hundreds really, of applications and submissions across all of our award categories. So they'll share maybe some behind the scenes tips that they might have. We'll talk a little bit about the scoring and then the 2026 timeline. So without any further ado, we'll dive in here. So As you see, actually, I'll come back here. As you see, there's four main categories that we have that are open for nominations right now. And that's Innovation Awards, Spotlight Awards, Scholarships and Fellowships, and Hall of Fame. So those are the four categories that we'll touch the most on. I want to acknowledge we have an awesome 30 under 30 recognition program. That was just announced. The winners were just announced this month for 30 under 30. The nomination period for that is in the fall. We also have an awesome partner organization called the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration, AAPRA, and they run the National Gold Medal Program. That's an awesome honor, the top honor for a park and recreation agency to win. We're not going to touch on 30 under 30 because it's not that time of year. We're not going to touch on gold medal as much in this presentation because once again, that's run by the Academy, AAPRA. But we will run through once again, innovation, spotlight, scholarship and fellowship, and Hall of Fame. So Innovation Award, there are four categories for Innovation Award. Uh, Innovation Awards are bestowed upon park and recreation agencies. They're bestowed on agencies for usually a project or a program or an initiative that was undertaken by the Park and Recreation Agency. Um, and we award four different categories. You do have to pick one of the categories if you're going to nominate a particular project or program. We have innovation in environmental resilience, innovation in equity, innovation in health and well-being, and innovation in park design. So as you likely are noticing there, that's NRPA's three pillars, and then an innovation in park design, which is a really popular legacy uh, award that we've had for a long time. So the common criteria that you will see when you look at kind of the nuts and bolts of innovation awards is once again, this is going to a park and recreation agency. That's not to say that um, there wasn't an awesome design firm, there wasn't an awesome consultant, there wasn't an awesome nonprofit probably that worked with the Parks and Recreation Agency for this project or program. But the Park and Rec Agency is the one who actually gets nominated or submits themselves. So if you are maybe a design firm or something like that, I'd encourage you to reach out to maybe a client that you've done a great project with and maybe support them in one of these award categories if you think. The other thing that is one of the main criteria for innovation awards is that the project or program needs to be launched, established, new since January 1st of 2025. So it's really like within the last year. It's from January 1st of 2025 through the nomination deadline this year. So we recognize that innovation by its nature has newness to it. We understand that that can be a bit of a gray area. Um, Maybe it was a project that has been planned for a long time, but we had a ribbon cutting in January of 2025. Perfect. That is something that, although maybe it started much before the actual opening of the park or the facility or the launch of the program was in 2025. So um, we try to really zero in on that newness, and we actually have a question to clarify. Maybe it's a program that has been going on longer, but it's substantially like it's a new, very new iteration of it, not just this year's iteration. It does need to be new or launched within 2025, or I guess in theory, there's these first couple months of 2026 as well. Um, Other things that are common criteria that you'll see for innovation awards is that there is, like most other NRPA awards, there is a membership requirement where either the agency has to be a member of NRPA or the agency director, or maybe the program lead within the agency has to be a director or has to be a member of NRPA. But there is no cost like beyond a membership. I guess there's cost to a membership. There's no cost to apply for any of these awards. Innovation awards are one of those as well. There's never a cost to nominate. Um, and then it's common for you to have a really cool program or event or project that you feel like, man, this really pushes forward equity in our community. This is a really innovative approach as well to park design, right? Maybe you feel like it can be really strong for multiple categories. You, as the nominator, do need to choose one category. You can't nominate a particular project or program for multiple of these innovation categories. Now, that said, if you've got a really cool program for innovation equity and you have a separate park that you want to nominate for park design, any agency can put in multiple innovation nominations. You just can't put the same thing in for multiple categories. So hopefully that makes sense. Before I hop over to Spotlight Awards, is there any other questions in particular about Innovation Awards? All right. Well, once again, we'll have some submission tips at the end as well, which I think we'll cover, but by all means, feel free to use the chat or come off mute if you have specific questions. So if innovation awards are bestowed upon park and recreation agencies, spotlight awards are bestowed upon individuals. So individual professionals, individual community members. We have 4 spotlight awards that we'll be awarding this year in 2026. That is uh, the National Distinguished Professional Award. That is the highest award that NRPA awards to any active park and recreation professional. We have a Dirk Richwine Professional Mentoring Award, lifting up the really important work of professional mentoring within the field of parks and recreation and celebrating, lifting up and celebrating that important work. And then a Robert Crawford Young Professional Award, so Young Professional of the Year. That's 35 or younger for that Young Professional Award, 35 or younger as of conference. And then we also have a Robert M. Arts Advocate Award. So if the previous 3 are for active park and recreation professionals, the Advocate Award is typically not going to a professional. It's typically going to a volunteer, maybe an outstanding board member, an all-star volunteer, an elected official perhaps, but somebody who doesn't do this work 9 to 5 getting paid for it, but they're really stepping up as a citizen advocate. Know that NRPA also offers a prestigious Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt Award for excellence in recreation and park research, but that is on a 3-year cycle. So the next time we'll be offering that research award will be 2027. But those Spotlight Awards, so 4 Spotlight Awards this year is the Advocate Award, the Young Professional Award, the Professional Mentoring Award, and the Distinguished Professional Award. When you're looking at the top 3 on the slide here, the National Distinguished Professional, the Dirk Richwine Professional Mentoring, and the Robert Crawford Young Professional Award, the nominee does need to be an NRPA member. The nominator usually is, but it doesn't have to be, the nominator doesn't have to be a member of NRPA. They do have to be an active park and recreation professional at the time of nomination. But besides that, each one of these has different sort of criteria of what's going to help stand out, right? National Distinguished Professional requires a certain number of years in the field, as does the Dirk Richwine Professional Mentoring, but the National Distinguished Professional is really looking at impact in the field in your overall body of work. And the Professional Mentoring Award is looking kind of two-sided at individual mentoring, like maybe one-on-one mentoring of individual professionals, but also it tries to capture group mentoring or mentoring of whole agencies. Maybe that's somebody who's done a wonderful job of creating a mentor program or group, or maybe they've worked a lot with mentoring whole agencies as part of our CAPRA program, right? Um, and then Crawford Young Professional is similar to the distinguished professional, if you will, but it's somebody who is still early on in their career typically, and or is 35 or younger, once again, as of conference. So does anyone have any specific questions about Spotlight Awards before we move on to scholarships and fellowships? One thing that I should probably have mentioned at the top, all of these awards, whether it's Innovation, Spotlight, Scholarship or Fellowship, or Hall of Fame, are all honored at our NRPA annual conference each year. They're honored, this year will be in Philadelphia, September 29th to October 1st. The best of the best ceremony is our celebration of these awesome award winners. That's where they receive their physical award. They come up on stage. We have pictures. Um, all of that happens at our Best of the Best ceremony, which is typically on Wednesday evening of conference. So that's an awesome celebration. Once again, you get your physical award there. It's a good segue, though, not only do scholarships and fellowships get that recognition at Best of the Best, but these three categories of fellowships and scholarships, so young professional fellowships, there's up to four of those. Those are supported by Sourcewell, thank you. Up to two diversity scholarships and up to two student scholarships. These eight winners not only get that celebration and recognition at Best of the Best, but they also get free conference registration. They get up to $1,250 of travel funds to get to or from conference, maybe get a hotel at conference. It can't cover per diem, but that can either be a travel reimbursement after conference or a stipend before conference to reduce uh, that hurdle for you to get to conference. And each one of these is paired with an experienced mentor who has been to conference before to help guide you through this process. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be your first time coming to conference with one of these scholarships and fellowships, but often it is. So we try to uh, pair you with an experienced Park and Rec professional, maybe somebody from the awards committee or someone from NRPA overall, to give you some tips and tricks, help introduce you to people, expand your network, that sort of thing. So scholarships and fellowships are just like the other awards, plus these added benefits. So to quickly run through the three categories, as it says on the slide here, there are up to four recipients a year of the Young Professional Fellowship, and that is once again 35 or younger at the time of conference, typically. We have up to two diversity scholarships. Those two diversity scholarships are individuals from traditionally underrepresented communities in Parks and Recreation, and or somebody who focuses heavily on serving an underrepresented uh, portion of their community in Parks and Recreation. And then up to two student scholarships. Those two student scholarships is the only category where you don't have to be a member of NRPA. We'd love it if you are, but you don't have to be a member of NRPA to apply for the student scholarship. Um, if you're not, then it's rolled into the award. A year-long membership is rolled into the award. So um, for innovation awards and for spotlight awards, those are typically nominations. It's kind of a self-nomination usually for innovation award. Spotlight award, you're nominating a colleague, you're nominating a coworker. Scholarships and fellowships are the individual submitting themselves. It's applying yourself. You do need, I'd encourage you to go in and look at the requirements in each one of these applications. Um, some of them have write-ups all of them have some sort of a write-up or essay sort of requirement with a word limit. Most of them also have submission of supplemental materials. So for these individual awards, often um, it's a resume or it might be a letter of recommendation. But the scholarships and fellowships, once again, you're applying as the individual, applying for the award yourself. So, any questions about scholarships and fellowships before we move on? All right, the Robert Crawford Recreation and Park Hall of Fame. So as I said, the National Distinguished Professional is the highest award that NRPA bestows upon an active park and recreation professional. The Robert Crawford Hall of Fame is a joint effort between NRPA and the Academy, who you heard about earlier. Um, and this joint committee, it's actually separate from the Awards and Scholarship Committee. This joint Hall of Fame committee considers nominations for individuals who have had a profound impact on the whole field of Parks and Recreation. Um, and to really emphasize that profound impact and really to kind of see it in a framework of history, you can't be considered an individual nominee cannot be considered for the Hall of Fame until 5 years after they've passed away. So that allows us to really have an opportunity to see them, their place in history, and their impact in history. It is certainly the most involved application, as it should be, for induction into Hall of Fame. But it is an incredible honor to pass along, hopefully, to a family member or to really celebrate the legacy of these icons of Parks and Recreation. So, if there's someone maybe from your state or from your agency who you think could be a good fit for this, I'd encourage you to reach out because it is one of the most involved applications. I'm here to support you at awards support.nrpa.org with whatever you need, but in particular with the Hall of Fame. Um, it's an awesome celebration of the legacy and these impacts on Parks and Recreation. Please let me know if you have any specific questions. Besides that, the criteria is really just um, looking at the existing inductees in the parks in the Hall of Fame, and do they meet that standard of profound national impact? So once again, I wanted to touch on these things and give you the resources if you'd like. Um, NRPA's 30 under 30 program, Park and Recreation 30 under 30 program, something that was just announced this month. The nomination period for that is late fall. I'm sorry, late summer. Late summer, right around conference, early fall. So if you're interested, I'd encourage you to check out nrpa.org/30 under 30. You can even sign up to get a reminder when that nomination period opens. The National Award medal gold medal program, excuse me, is run by the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration. I do think their website is having some issues right now, but hopefully it's up now or it will be back up soon. That is, let's get an extremely prestigious honor that can be won by a park and recreation agency. Those gold medal finalists are honored at the NRP annual conference, and the gold medal grand plaques are announced and celebrated at one of our general sessions at conference. But it's not something that I directly oversee, so I'd encourage you to reach out to the Academy if you have specific questions about gold medal. I do know the award period is the nomination period, I believe, is a little bit earlier than our national awards. So we'll get to timeline here in 1 second. Does anybody have any questions about kind of nuts and bolts of the awards, the award forms, that sort of thing? Because if not, I'll show you how to log in, but then I'll really pass it off to the awards committee to chime in as they see fit on some submission tips. Any questions about nuts and bolts, criteria, or eligibility, or benefits, that sort of thing about our award categories before we move on? All right. So, submission tips, how to log in. You're going to go to nrpa.org/awards. So nrpa.org/awards, which will get you to the right page. When you actually go to the award submission portal, it'll prompt you to log in. You'll see a login page very similar to this. This is the same login that you use if you have ever registered for conference with NRPA. If you've ever registered, actually, how you registered for this online learning event was using the same login page. When you're doing submissions for awards or you're doing submissions to present at conference, it is the same login credentials that you've used for those other aspects. If you don't remember what your login username is, there is that nice forgot username or forgot password. Those do work nicely, so I encourage you to utilize that. If you still have questions, customer service at nrpa.org can help you get that login information. The nice thing about the award submissions platform is that when you go in, you can save your progress. You can come back later. You can add collaborators. And actually, while we share some more, I'll actually pull after the awards committee shares a little bit. I'll pull up an example and show you kind of a little bit more of the nuts and bolts. But you can go in and you can save. You can come back. You can add multiple collaborators if you want to work on one of the essay questions and then have someone else review it, or if you want to work on one and let them work on something else, especially for maybe an innovation award or something like that. All of that is possible within the portal, as we call it, the submission portal. So I'd love to empower our members of the National Award and Scholarship Committee to come off mute. I know we have several on here today. I've showed you how to log in, double check the eligibility criteria. We say is kind of important, but it is easy to overlook. Only picking one innovation category. What are the suggestions? Maybe something off the slide or something not on the slide. Would you have as somebody who has done these reviews of nominations? Committee members.
Maybe Michael, I'll go.
Thank you,
Sevi.
Seve.
Yeah, no, thank you. Just a few quick things, and if I'm repeating some of the things, just bear with me. Method to the madness kind of thing. But I think the main thing here is answering the questions. So I'm answering them concisely. So if the question says, "What is it?" or "Why is the sky blue?" it might be a good precursor to start the sentence with "The sky is blue because." So not just get into the bullet points directly, kind of I take that direction from how we do the CAPRA accreditation too.
Yeah.
So how you answer the question is very important. So it also tells us you have read the question, so that's kind of, and tying the two together is very important. And then also just sticking to the facts and not repeating the same words or the same sentence over and over again. So you do not, even if your limit is, say, 300 words in that section to answer the question, you don't have to use all 300 words, is what I would suggest. If you can answer the question briefly and concisely, even in, say, 200 words or less, or whatever the number is, that's awesome, actually, because we're all human too on the committee. We we take the time to read all of this, so we get tired after a while too. So just being honest upfront about it, that if you can be as concise as possible is very important. And then also the last thing to see, is you all are doing great things, so you have a great story to tell. So focus on the one piece that totally you think, in your view, totally separates you from the rest. And I always bring this up because, there's what, about 12,000 park and rec agencies in the country, and we all do great things in a city of 2,000 to a city of 2 million. But then what separates you from, being, and hopefully you keep up with the industry and you know what's out there. So if you can touch on that piece about what separates you, that's where you have a better chance of being recognized as a winner. So those are my two things here. Others can
Thank
chime
you.
in. So, thank you.
Thanks, Evie.
Michael, I can chime in if you want me to.
Please go ahead, Nathan.
Okay. I think the biggest thing, Sebi kind of said it off the bat, big time, is what makes you different from other Parks and Rec agencies. So, of course, you need to keep up with current trends. But I think the biggest thing I always ask people is what impact are you making on your community? That's the biggest thing. Women lie and men lie, but numbers don't lie. So, what numbers are you proclaiming that, like, hey, I'm actually helping my community in this effort? Okay, I'm going to ask you from all of you. Okay, how are you doing that? Why is that important to us? Why should we care about that? Okay. So, and now telling it in a concise form is kind of tough. But the biggest thing is, how are you impacting the community? So last year I had to judge the Crawford Award, the Young Professionals Award. So I was looking at what impact are they making to their community? They don't have to be super elaborate in events or anything like that. It's more of how are they helping their people at home? How are they doing the basic things, those little things that are helping the community go from here to all the way and elevate to here? So that's kind of what we're looking at. Sebi kind of said it best, just keeping your trends on what makes you separate from there. But then also looking at whenever you do have somebody, make sure you do have somebody that represents you when you're judging that, somebody that does have knowledge about you if you are judging that person. So make sure you do know their work. Make sure you know what they're doing to elevate in their work as well. Because I've seen some, I'm like, I wonder if they could maybe find somebody else that could really that knows their work a little bit more, has more experience with their work a little bit better, because that can make their submission a little bit more credible to kind of see their impact, if that makes sense.
Plus
Um,
one. To plus one that really quick. You might have more data, but we can only go off what's on the nomination, right? Um, and we've seen a handful where like, man, I like maybe one or two people on the committee know this person well, but ultimately we have to go off what's on the submission. That's what's fair, right? That's what's we force ourselves to try to be impartial with that. And so yeah, trying to find the right balance of perspectives. The inviting collaborators can be a great way to do that. And I'll show in a second here how to do those invite collaborators. Because yeah, you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. And as you are limited on characters, but trying to really get the full picture is important. Anything else, Nathan? I loved that.
that's really it. Those are my two biggest things I was looking for. Is really
Yeah.
what community impact are you really making? You can be different all you want, but how are you helping your community at the same time? Telling us, hey, you're really helping your community in this impact, because that's what we really should judge. That's what we really judge as Parks and Rec professionals: is how are you elevating and help impacting your community in a positive way. So
Love
that's it.
that. Thank you. Either the thoughts from the committee?
Well, not to jump ahead, Michael, but I see on the
Good.
list the use of AI, and you're probably
Yeah.
going to touch on it, but I think there's a big temptation nowadays to use AI, but I would recommend totally refraining from it, because you have to tell your story, and I think you can tell it the best with as much emotion, and whether it's in writing or just the phrasing and all of that. I think that's important. So I think please stay away from AI as much as possible. So thank you.
Yeah, you can start to tell when people are starting to use AI now on certain passages, on certain things. So we will catch that. So hopefully nobody
Yeah.
uses AI for that.
Yeah, it's one of those things we don't prohibit the use of AI, but I remember I think it was 2 years ago, as part of our scoring at the end as we debriefed a little bit, somebody in the committee looked around and said, "Can we just talk about the fact that clearly there was about 10 of these that used AI because they all sounded very similar." So once again, it's not prohibited. You'll see this disclaimer though on every one of the applications. It can be detrimental because we've talked about differentiating and standing out. And if your nomination sounds like 9 other nominations, it's not going to help it differentiate. So um, I'm a proponent of using AI for lots of things, and maybe it can give you an outline if you wanted to give you an outline, but I would encourage you once again to try as much as you can to write it yourself. Now, along the same lines, um, as I talk to award committees and others in some of your state associations or just award nerds, for lack of a better term, we want to give awards to the best nominees, right? To the best submissions, not necessarily the best written awards, right? Just like you want to hire the best applicant, not necessarily just the best interview. Now, that said, good writing does matter. You've got to have both. You've got to have a well-written application and the substance behind it. Um, we're not grading you and we're trying not to discount you for bad writing, but if it's not clearly written, then we can't understand it as well as a well-written application would be. So, and as Seve said, this is scored directly by park and recreation professionals. They're human. So if you can, whether you're a good writer or whether you have somebody else review it, maybe you add them as a collaborator. Try to use strong writing in your nomination. That does help you differentiate, helps your message come across. And then once again, I'm here at awards@nrpa.org. If you have questions, you're not barred from reaching out to those on the awards committee. Oftentimes they'll direct those to me, and that's fine. The awards committee is charged with trying to encourage nominations, and they can be a great resource, but ultimately they do have to do the scoring. They remain impartial through the process. So they're not going to tell you if this is going to win or not, but they'll encourage you to submit and give you tips that they would give anyone else. So one question that came in the chat, which I'd love to touch on, is a question: if you apply for the Innovation in Park Design Award this year and don't win, are you able to apply again next year if it still meets the qualification date range? So the qualification date range for innovation awards does come out to be about 15 months. There are rare instances where if it is something that opened January of 2026, that you can nominate it this year and next year. That certainly is okay to do and it's fine to do. Um, we need that recency in order to, first of all, we already get over 100 awesome nominations for that. And we recognize once again that innovation does have recency. But if it falls within the eligibility criteria for 2 years, then yes, you can submit it more than once. That's a pretty rare instance, but that is possible. Once again, just make sure you're only nominating for one of the four categories of innovation for each award. I'm sorry, for each project. So by all means, please keep chiming in the chat if you have other questions, or feel free to come off mute.
And Michael, I was going to add one more quick thing,
Yeah, and then I'll go to
to
you, Christian.
Nathan's point about credibility and so on. When you do answer the questions, if you have some local other third-party organization, whether it's a local university,
Ooh,
college, or even a nonprofit or the CVB or somebody that has already recognized you for the similar project, make sure you mention some of those things in there because that adds value to your application. Don't make it as unique as you think you want to make it, but also add in all the credible awards or a recognition that you've already received in the community for it. So whether it's A through Z of any organizations in your community. So.
Yeah, can I say something about that on Sevi's point, if you don't mind, Michael?
Yeah, by all
Yeah,
means.
anything recognitions that are all around basis that you can think of. Yeah, I can see a lot of members that I know that have put in for awards, and I go through their LinkedIn, and they're a part. They won this award from Chamber of Commerce. They won this award from Electric Company. They've won all these awards from different occupations, from different areas, and it's not in there. Please put that stuff in there, please, if you don't mind, because like I said, all those awards, even like a little bit of recognition, it goes a long way to us. Because like I said, that we don't know that, but having that all that multifaceted recognition shows us why that award needs to be awarded to you or to your organization or agency. So
Yeah, thank you, Nathan.
And one last
Chris,
thing I'll share
yeah.
real quick is that if you are a smaller agency, I've always been a big proponent for smaller agencies, usually like 50,000 and less, because having spent many years in Iowa and all of that, smaller towns,
Hmm.
you want to feel empowered to apply. And that's the thing, because many feel like, oh, I'm going to be competing against so and so or my neighboring city that's the 150,000 or 200,000 population city. They have more resources. They're doing lots of great things. But you'll be amazed. Even a small town of, say, 20,000 might be doing great things. Unless you put it down on paper, we do not know that. So this is a good
Yeah.
way to receive that recognition, especially for smaller agencies. So I would definitely recommend small agencies to apply.
Yeah, so I got that question yesterday actually in the awards inbox, and I said go look at the past winners. And sure, there's lots of large
Sure.
agencies and counties perhaps on the past winners list, which we list on our website in like the About Awards. But there's also just as many smaller agencies. Like off the top of my head, it was Fishers and Indiana and Frisco, Texas, and Golden Valley, Minnesota that. Might seem like the small agency, but that doesn't mean that you're not doing phenomenal things, and also that it's not phenomenal for that community, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, help us tell that story. Help us understand that story. Kristen, I saw you come off mute. Do we answer your question, or can I answer something else for you?
Equity and sort of just.
Hey everybody, my name's Kristen. I'm with City of Aurora in Colorado.
Yeah.
I had trouble with my Zoom link, so if you did mention this in the first 5 minutes, I apologize. One of the questions of our team is debating between is the Equity Award versus the Park Design Award.
Hmm.
And part of the strategies we used was to increase equity, especially for folks with mobility needs.
Hmm.
So we're sort of trying to decide what would be most appropriate in reading the description for both of those award types.
Yeah.
Our design is for accessibility and equity, but the strategies, which is sort of the keyword in the park design,
Hmm.
is what allows it to be so. Do you have
Yeah.
any guidance for those of you who review these on what might be most appropriate for our park and which one to apply for?
Yeah. Really, really common question. Ultimately, the agency's got to make that call, but I don't know if Nathan, Seve, in general, if you have any thoughts on which would, if you think you fit into a couple. I saw Nathan come off mute first, and then we'll go to
Sevi,
Sevi.
I'll let you take this one first.
Okay.
Okay. No, I'll give it a shot. I think, no, it is a very tight nuance as far as which category to submit that award for. But when I look at, say, on the design piece, it's the overall design, so then it's a bigger picture piece. And on the equity piece, it's very specific. So if I look at numbers, so if there were more from the marginalized populations using the park as a result of that design, and if you have tabulated those numbers, say it went from 20 on a typical day to 200, those are the kinds of things that would also enhance your case for that equity award, not necessarily the park design award, if that makes sense, so. But go ahead, Nathan. Maybe you have a different perspective also. So
No, that makes sense on Sevi's point. Yeah, with equity, you got to look at what number. You got to look at statistics a little bit. You got to look at numbers of what you're actually providing with equity. Park design is a little bit overall of the engine that gets it going. So, Chris, I think my question is what is the engine that keeps it going for this to actually make it happen, for the community impact to actually make it happen? Is it more of the strategy behind it, or is it the park design by it, or is it the equity that you're actually producing with the impact for your community that you can see throughout? Okay, does that maybe make some sense, Sebi? You can maybe, or Michael, you can help me with my points, maybe.
And I was going to add one quick piece to that. So, how did that park design come to be? So that's where I look at the award. So, was it designed by just a planner in the department, or a third party, vendor that a contractor that you hired for the design? And how many people were involved in the design process, and how many groups, and especially groups across the community. So if you have, in your data points, you show that your community is made up of so and so, so and so, so and so, different percentages. Did they all participate at a certain high level to create this design? Because the design doesn't just, come up from the typical landscape architect's design. It's also input from the community. So if you can show that, that's the what I call the Park Design Award. The Equity Award is what I touched on earlier. So.
No, I like that a lot. And what I'm hearing, I think, to synthesize a little bit is like, where do you tell the best story, right? Where does it pop? Where can you communicate that impact best? Because the good news is, like, we get dozens of nominations for these. It's a big deal to be selected as ultimately one of these 4 Innovation Award. Like, we've even struggled internally on the committee of like it's one of the toughest meetings that I think all of us have that in the year is that selection committee meeting, because it's not, I mean, it's common to have 4 or 5 different committee members all kind of advocating uh for different submissions. And so yeah, how can you really help tell that story and make it pop? So really great question. Thank you, Kristen, because I think it's applicable to a lot of other people in addition to Aurora. So I'm going to show really quick, just in case people need a little bit of the nuts and bolts of getting in to the award. This is awards.nrpa.org. Please keep putting things in the chat if people have questions. This is getting to those those categories that we've talked about. For instance, if we want to be submitting someone for a Spotlight Award, um, this touches on the nomination deadline, all these sort of things. Say that I want to submit someone for the Crawford Young Professional Award. If I click the submit button, it takes you to our award portal here for submissions. This is really talks about the eligibility criteria, the nuts and bolts. It gives you a kind of a preview about the sort of questions that you're going to be asked in here. And also has ultimately then the apply link, right? So apply today. I'm using our friend Jay Tryon as our test dummy here. He won't take offense to me calling him that. If I go in here, I can see that you can begin a new submission, and then you can actually see the different incomplete submissions. If you have started multiple applications and you want to come back, this is where you're going to see on your incomplete submissions. You can also then see completed submissions. Do know that this is like recently completed. After a while, we archive them. We still have them if you want an old version of it. But it'll autofill some information here for you. But I want to go over to the essay questions, because each award has different essay questions. And they all have usually a word count. So if you want, you can be hand typing in here, and it'll count those words for you. If you prefer to work in a Word document, copy and paste, that works great too. I also wanted to highlight, though, this Manage Contributors button in the top right. Once again, if you've got multiple people at your department, or maybe if you want to be collaborating with that design firm, or maybe a consultant who you used for some of that community outreach, maybe that you want them to answer that question for Innovation Award, right? Because there's talking about doing outreach in your community. You can manage collaborators. You can't both be typing at the exact same time, but you can work on something one day and then they can work on something the next hour, right? So manage collaborators is a strong tool to have there. And then the supporting materials is usually where you're going to have uploads of things like a resume, letters of recommendation, those sort of things. Um, and so it talks about the accepted file types. If you have issues getting an upload, please let me know. Knock on wood, usually it goes pretty seamlessly, but I am here to offer that sort of tech support if you need. And then ultimately, though, you can save. You don't have to save and submit. Do know that like don't close the tab if you've been working on something without hitting save. You do want to make sure you go down to the bottom and hit save. But then you can see in the corner here, information saved. Now I can go away and it will have saved the progress, saved what I've been working on. If you've got something else that comes up at work, or if you only have time to work on one or two questions at a time, all of that is possible in here. When you come back in, once again, you'll see your incomplete applications on the left side. So, anybody have any questions about kind of the nuts and bolts of this is actually open water? Do the managed collaborators need to sign in and or be NRPA members as well? So yes, they will need to sign in. They do not need to be NRPA members. An NRPA member could nominate a non-member could nominate a member. Most nominators are members, but in theory, a non-member could nominate a member. So they will have to have an account. In order for you to add this collaborator, it has to be somebody who already has an account. But hopefully that's simple enough for you to find their account and add them as a collaborator. Once again, they don't have to be a member to be a collaborator. Great question, Leslie. Any other kind of nuts and bolts questions here? All right. We've got a little bit of time left here. I want to make sure that we get to our final couple slides. Sally, do you have a question? I saw you came off mute. No problem. Okay. So scoring insight, a little bit of the nuts and bolts behind the scenes for scoring. It's pretty straightforward. The written responses that you see put in there, nearly all of them have a direct score that that the scoring, the awards and scholarship committee will score. And then typically the supporting materials, like maybe it's pictures for the innovation awards or a letter of recommendation for the scholarship or fellowship, do a wonderful job of kind of providing overall context. But it's really those written responses that directly scores are getting derived from, which it sounds silly, but Sevi's first suggestion was answer the question, right? And so making sure that you're answering the question as it's proposed. If you throw in a little bit of extra flair on the back end of it, maybe an extra sentence or two at the end, that's great, but make sure you address what's actually been asked. If we ask about community outreach and you talk about how it's an innovative design, cool, but you're not going to get a strong score on the community outreach if that's what the question is about. Yes. I see in the chat, is this being recorded? Yes, this is being recorded and it'll be available at nrpa.org/awards. It'll be on each one of these pages. There'll be a link as soon as I can get the website updated. So hopefully by tomorrow, we'll have this full recording up. Keep in mind, we've touched on this already, but scoring is done by fellow park and recreation professionals. It's a committee of 15, I'd say from across the country, but literally from across the world. We have a scorer from a military base in Japan even. So this is park and recreation professionals who donate many, many hours of their day, especially April, May time, doing all of this scoring, all of this reviewing for these dozens of applications. So as Maxime said earlier, thank you to that group. But it is important sometimes to know who your audience is, right? These are park and rec professionals that are doing the scoring. And once again, when scoring is close, when the qualifications are close, writing does matter. It's not something that we directly ding you for bad writing, but it does help you sometimes really convey the message you're trying to get across. Yeah, keep in mind, judges are human too. We don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of your agency. We only know what's in the application. And also, humans really are drawn to wow factor, right? If you've got a great way to share your story, that matters, right? Um, can you share the second page of the non-essay part of the equity award? Yes, I can certainly do that. The other thing that you can do is you can go in and um, click around and see these without having to answer all the questions. You can go in. It won't let you submit until you have all of the required fields filled, but you should be able to click from one page to the next to see all of those pages of the application, Leslie. Um, Another question from Debbie is park design for any facility or facility within a park, asking about a new community center. We've seen whole parks, we've seen facilities within parks. It is definitely meant to cover both. The winner that I referenced earlier from Fishers, Indiana was a makerspace. It was innovative and it was really cool several years ago, really how they came to that, to identify that need and how they embrace community partners in order to fill that need in their community. But once again, that's not a whole park, that's a space within a park. My first year here at NRPA, the innovation in Park Design Award winner was an interpretive nature center in metropolitan Minneapolis in St. Louis Park. So it has been whole parks before, it has been facilities. It certainly isn't intended to cover both. Debbie, great question. So the process for 2026, I understand if you're watching this recording afterwards, please double check if it's 2027 or 2028. Double check the individual dates for that year. But for 2026, we are in the submission period. So the submission period started in early January. You have until Friday, March 27th to submit your application. I have it on the each individual website. It is 11:59 p.m., so right before midnight Eastern time. I'm online that night in case there's random questions. We do have a handful that'll come in that late, but know that you've got until the end of the day Eastern time on Friday, March 27th to complete and submit your submission. If you have tech issues, please do reach out immediately to awards.nrpa.org. That submission deadline does need to be there so that we can move forward. It's also not meant to be punitive, right? Like we need to move forward as the committee because the committee has a ton of work to do. This says April, but it'll probably be like April 1st. As soon as we can meet as a committee to kick off our scoring period, we will get rolling on scoring each one of these individual nominations. In case you're wondering, the committee of 15 splits up the different categories into different groupings, and then does that scoring from April to early May. And at that point, ultimately, the committee then uses those average scores to pick ultimately the winner for each individual category or the winners in the scholarships and fellowships categories. Those meetings, that 2 hour meeting will happen in May. And I will very quickly work after that to finalize any last minute things. We say that we will announce the award winners by June. Usually it's in May. My goal is certainly to have the award winners be announced in May, but certainly by June at the latest. And then as we talked about earlier, our winners are honored at the annual Best of the Best ceremony at the NRPA annual conference, which this year will be in Philadelphia, September 29th to October 1st. So likely that Best of the Best ceremony will be the evening of Wednesday, September 30th. Any questions about the process? Once again, you can save and come back. If you submit and you have something that didn't look right, please reach out and let me know. Other common questions for the Spotlight Awards, especially if you're trying to make the Spotlight Award submission a surprise. That does happen from time to time. That is a wonderful surprise if if you're able to get the information and pull it off. If you need help finding the nominee's NRPA ID number, because the nominee has to be a member, feel free to reach out to awards@nrpa.org because I can help you look that up to fill in that blank on the submission form. And know that when I do reach out to the winners, in May or June to confirm their acceptance. Know that on the Spotlight Awards, I will reach out to the I will reach out to the nominator in case the nominator wants to let the nominee know. So I try to respect that in case it was a surprise. I'd love to let the nominator have that opportunity to tell them. So any questions about the process? And then I'll show Leslie the Equity Award application here really quick. So there's a question in the chat about the Equity Award. So I go to Innovation Awards. I go to Innovation and Equity. So if I scroll down to the bottom here, I click once again, click Apply Today. So we had a question about the page after the non-essay. So I'm not sure if there's a specific question. Thank you for being here, Jody. But this is where we have the opportunity to upload files. It usually works best if you can to have these be PDFs. It'll allow you to put a document in, but usually it works best to be PDFs or JPEGs down here for the photos. But hopefully the uploads are nice and simple for you. Hopefully that works seamlessly. If not, please reach out and I'm happy to do some tech support. Once again, noticing here, make sure you reach to Sevi's point. Make sure we're actually giving what is asked for here, which is a test. In this individual one is a testimony from an individual who's a non-staff member. So making sure that it's not the director or someone like that, right? Every once in a while we'll have something like that trip you up, but make sure we read the directions. So, all right. Well, to finish us out here, I've referenced it several times, but nrpa.org/awards is where you're going to find all this information, where you find links to the submission forms. Awards at nrpa.org is certainly your best place to get questions answered if you have very specific questions. If you just need help logging on, customer service can help you with that, or you can email awards and I can forward it there too. But thank you so much for your interest in NRPA Awards. I I always say this grinning, but my goal is to make the committee's life hard, right? And they understand that, and I might chuckle, but we want this to be a tough decision, like it has been the last several years for each one of these individual awards. We really are blown away by the depth and the diversity and just wow, the nominations that come in, whether it's for an innovation award or individuals for those scholarships, fellowships, or the Spotlight Awards. It's awe-inspiring. And thank you for all the work that you do, and thank you for putting in the time to submit these awards, because you deserve it and your team deserves the recognition. So thank you for your interest, and please let us know if we can help you in any way. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. See you all. Take care. Thank you.